So my grant proposal is real simple, but it's really kind of broad in the same aspect as well. We have a really big issue in our Spanish classes of student motivation. My biggest problem is that sometimes students don't really see the need to actually learn a second language because they're in the deep dark hills of Eastern Kentucky, and sometimes they think, I'm never going to speak Spanish, I don't want to go anywhere else, blah, 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 blah. So as a teacher, that creates some obstacles sometimes when you're trying to get your students engaged in the learning process to really see that value, that need for motivation, the need to actually do something with the language other than just sit here and look at a book and so forth. So my project is real simple. This is one that actually focuses on, it is entitled, Let's Travel to Latin America in One Day via Harlan County. Now, you can do this in other places besides the location I'm going to tell you about. We actually decided to focus on Morristown, Tennessee because it's less than 2 hours away from Harlan County, and that's really phenomenal. It was like an hour and 45 minutes actually. But if you're closer to Lexington, there's a really cool community called Aguascalientes, and it's off of Versailles Road, off of New Circle, and you can do the same project there. For us, however, to go to Lexington, it's 3 hours away. So to get from Harlan County to Lexington in one school day was a little bit very tedious, to say it lightly, and then make it back and all the different aspects of transportation and what have you. But my grant proposal here had the focus question as a research question: how will a field trip to a socio-linguistically diverse community raise engagements from students with low socioeconomic backgrounds in Eastern Kentucky? We have 90% free and reduced lunch, and because of that we just go universal across the board, free and reduced lunch, and that's what we typically are used to. Our students, their cultural diversity when it comes to Spanish is a typical Mexican restaurant, which they love, but at the same point, they don't realize that there's more out there close by and a really strong need to actually learn a second language. However, down in Morristown, the students were actually able to, they're actually able to go to Morristown and see an actual panadería, which is a bakery, an actual Hispanic bakery. And if you go in there, you need to speak some Spanish because there's very limited English spoken, which I think is phenomenal. There's also a lavandería, like a laundromat. There's also una tienda mexicano, which has got almost complete products in Spanish. And the cool things about it, some of these kids were not really aware that other diverse foods such as lengua, cow tongue, is a very typical taco dish, or cabeza, brains, is a very typical taco dish as well, or tripa, stomach tripe, is also a very typical taco that you might have. And these students were able to actually envision this in a supermarket and actually see those products in real world time. And not only that, the whole street, it was Cumberland Street, and in Lexington, if you go the Lexington route, you can actually see a little area right off of Versailles Road. On the Alexandria Drive, it's the same way, but the whole area is just immersed in nothing but Spanish. It's like Little Mexico per se in that way. And the kids were just so shocked. We already did our field trip and we're doing all the data analysis as we speak, but they were so shocked to go into a restaurant and see the whole entire menu in nothing but Spanish. They actually said, oh wow, actually it's not translated for me. What do I have to do? Oh wow, I got to use my notes. I can't believe it. There's such a deep level of culture shock in a good way, and it was developed because I thought, why would I want to take them to the Mexican restaurant for their food unit when I can actually do more and take them to the real world, not a fake environment, but a real world environment that's just right down the road from them essentially. Why not just do that with them and let them see that and get that little culture shock feel that they need to see that true need of actually going beyond it. And it was developed to mimic a study abroad experience in another country, because I've lived in I studied abroad in Spain and Costa Rica, lived in Ecuador 2.5 years, and then studied in Colombia and Peru as well. And I knew that, the kids need to see more than just a typical Tex-Mex environment that you see in Harlan County, but they need to see there's just a little bit further down the road, there's a real world, real ambiance of the need for Spanish. When they went to the bakery, these are some pictures I took prior to the field trip, but they were actually able to see actual things. The whole store, like for example on this one, it says pan serrano y amarillo. Everything is in Spanish, and they actually have to read and infer the meaning of it in Spanish, which to me is like amazing. And one of the students, and this is probably going to touch on what we'll have to talk more so in the spring, but one of the students said, she in her reflection statement, she said, I could not believe that there was actually that big of a need, literally less than 2 hours from my home. And she said they go to the Smokies and Morristown area a lot. and they never did truly realize that. So that's what my focus was. And that was my action plan, of course. Now, my gifted and talented students, each student had to come back and do a presentation to the class as well. But the gifted and talented students had to collaborate with other teachers across in other disciplines like social studies, foods and nutrition, and so forth, and present their project to those classes and tell about it. And I've got some really good comments from that too. And so they actually had to do a cross-curricular collaboration with them, and they had to explain that that cultural diversity, that global competency is such a strong, important need. And I think they really shared a lot of good details with those students so far. We've still got a few more to go, but it's been phenomenal at that point. The cost, of course, one of the reasons I needed a grant is because, as someone mentioned earlier today, school systems simply don't have a lot of money to do these kinds of things like we need. And $1.50 a mile times 90 miles one way times 2 buses, you're getting like $540. And all the subs you have to get, because technically it was out of state in my situation, so we had to put a few extra in there, and then some spending money assistance. But the kids, though, so far my results from those research studies have been phenomenal. And the kids actually had to pick a topic. A sociological topic is what most of them picked, and they focused on the social aspects of that diversity, and how also when they was there, they had to speak the whole time in Spanish, and they were able to interview some of the people, like the cashiers and stuff, what it was like to live in an environment in the United States and not speak much English, and how they felt here. And they had to experience that, and they had to ask about their family life. They had to use all the stuff they'd learned actually in that real world experience. Just like that one administrator from Knott County said earlier, learning does not always contain itself within 4 walls. You have to go beyond the box to get out there and do that. And that's what these students were able to do at that point. So it really opened their eyes a lot. Many kids said that they thought they'd be super comfortable, but then their comfort zone kind of went down a little bit. Because when there's Spanish all around you and you're the minority, that's a little bit different. So it really gave them an intrapersonal reflection moment, because those kids were able to feel what it feels like when they're actually having friends here who don't speak a lot of English, and one of them actually said she was almost in tears when she was feeling that. So it was pretty phenomenal, and we'll get more into the results this spring, obviously. And we did a motivational state survey beforehand, one of the mock surveys, motivation for, forget the exact name, MSLQ, motivation strategies for LQ, and I forget off the top of my head what that truly means, but it is one of those research-based studies. We did a prior pre-trip survey, and we did some interviews during the trip, and then we're going to do a post-survey with a select group of those focus group students when we get back there too in the coming days. So, any questions? Okay.